Part 15. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 141. Chapter 141 Chapter 141 Be bold. Fu Chenxiao stared at Zhang Xiaoxiao. He didn't seem to want to hit someone, but he was still arguing with him. He even learned to use the old man to suppress himself, and some surprise flashed in his cold eyes. A few seconds later, Fu Chenxiao curled his lips and said, "When you grow up, you dare to fight me. This is the truth." Fu Chenxiao didn't finish his words before Zhang Xiaoxiao choked back again. After he finished choking, he tried to get up with a straight face. He moved a few times but failed. He was a little annoyed and said, "Let go of your hand. I'm going to find Hanyu." Fu Chenxiao was so angry with a certain girl that his liver ached. When he was a child, he never dared to shout so loudly in front of him. Now that he has grown up and his wings have hardened, he dared to challenge himself. He lowered his eyebrows and said, "Did I let you go? You said you won't let me go, and you won't let me go. Who are you? Why do you care about me?" Zhang Xiaoxiao is really angry. While talking about the man who gives himself time, he also wants to force himself to control himself. Is this the attitude he should adopt? Furthermore, even her mother hasn't cared about her like this since she was a child. Why should he? Are you Baiyu Eguang's guardian? She wasn't Baiyu Eguang, so she didn't want to listen to him. Fu Chenxiao's face turned green with anger at her. Someone really had strong wings and began to disobey him. He trapped someone with a little force and said, "Why should I care about you? I will tell you, Zhang Xiaoxiao, you write your name on the household register with me. I am your guardian. Do you think I am qualified to take care of you? How can any guardian do such a thing to the person under his guardianship? I don't want to share a household registration with you. I want to follow my grandpa. I don't want you anymore." Fu Chenxiao was so angry that someone really made him feel bad. Someone was really capable of making people angry to death. With a sullen face, he spoke harshly to her little mouth, which made him feel so hurt. Well, Zhang Xiaoxi was frightened by the sudden mouth. The mouth was just like that day abroad. It was fierce, cruel, and painful. Zhang Xiaoxiao frowned together. This is simply a punitive statement. It hurts. Zhang has been unable to swallow since he was a child. Fu Chenxiao let go of her and stared at her with cold eyes. "Do you still want to talk properly?" Zhang Xiaoxiao felt extremely wronged. In the book, every word and action he said and did was based on the boss's eyes. Why? Zhang Shi felt a lot of dissatisfaction, but the pain at the corner of her mouth forced her to give in. Well, easy to say, maybe, you, bit, me." Zhang Xiaoxi covered his mouth with one hand and stared at Fu Chenxiao defensively. "Do you still want to divide your household registration with me? There is no difference. Am I qualified to take care of you? Have." After getting her answer, Fu Chenxiao let her go. "When you're young, don't let your fifth uncle hear these words in the future. Your fifth uncle's heart will hurt. Your fifth uncle's heart is also made of flesh." Zhang Xiaoxiao. She was obviously the one who was wronged and hurt, so why did he still feel wronged by the boss? But why did her heart feel heavy and her breathing not smooth when she saw his hurt expression? "If you want to go find Niuniu, go ahead. But I will have someone pick you up before dark." Fu Chenxiao left the message and got up. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at the big man's broad and tall back with several intertwined nail marks. His face turned slightly red, and he was extremely dry, but he blurted out without thinking, "Why? Our uncle Fu Wu originally wanted to have a good talk with Zhang Xiaotang, but Zhang Xiaotang was too pretentious, so I'm going to let you do it for a while." Ha 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 ha. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 142. Chapter 142 Chapter 142 Learn to treat me as your man, okay? Why, what do you think? Fu Chenxiu turned his back to her and his voice was deep. Zhang Xiaoxiu's eyelashes trembled slightly. She didn't understand why she asked such a sentence. This sentence was not what she wanted to ask. Is it this body? Zhang Xiaoxiao stared at the boss's back in confusion. Fu Chenxiu did not turn around and turned his back to Zhang Xiaoxi, as if he was stating something natural and normal. Xiao Xiao, my fifth uncle's love for you has never been hidden. I have been waiting for you to turn 18. Zhang Xiao's heart suddenly shrank, and his dark eyes were stained with a hint of sadness. When I was little, I said I liked you, so you can only be mine, do you understand? Zhang Xiao breathed heavily, but Uncle Wu, have you ever thought about it? I never thought about changing our relationship. I thought we would always be uncle-nephew. When I was young, we only had a male-female relationship. You never thought of changing our relationship. So from the day I became your man, our relationship was destined to never return to its original state. You just have to learn to accept it. I know it's not fair to you. When Fu Chenxiu said this, he turned around, his fingertips swiped across her cheek, stopped at the corner of her lips, and rubbed back and forth. When you were young, how about you learn to treat Uncle Wu as your man? Zhang Xiao's heart was beating violently, faster and louder. Uncle Wu, I'm hungry. Fu Chenxiu stared at her with cold eyes, a bright light shining deep in his eyes, and the corner of his mouth curled up slightly. If you want to eat down there, I might as well bring it up to you. I'll go down and eat. Fu Chenxiu frowned and rubbed the top of her hair with one hand, his voice filled with joy. Are you sure you still have the strength to go down to eat? Zhang Xiao's face turned red and she tried to move in the dark. The weakness of her legs made her bite the corner of her lip in shame and glare at him. Fu Chenxiu turned a blind eye and asked, does it still hurt down there? If it still hurts, there is ointment next to it. I applied it to you when you fell asleep last night. Zhang Xiao. Bird. Beast. Dining room. Fu Chenxiu's eyes stayed on Zhang Xiao, occasionally helping her pick up food, holding the phone in one hand and listening to the irritable voices inside. You bastard, have you been living in society all these years in vain? Or have you lived in vain for 28 years? Is there any harm in studying abroad when you were young? Going abroad will make your childhood better. You don't understand. It's hard for me to send her out of the country, and I'll send her out on your own, but you'll force her back from abroad. What do you think you want? Mr. Fu yelled at Fu Chenxiu angrily. Fu Chenxiu calmly held the phone further away from his ear, picked up food for Zhang Xiaoxiao with an expressionless face, and ignored the old man, as if he didn't hear what the old man said. Fu Chenxiu, let me tell you, don't think I don't know that I secretly returned to China to avoid you when I was a child. Fortunately, she was friends with that girl from the Chu family. Otherwise, I would have seen you go there to find someone. This girl has been very clever since she was little. If she uses those tricks, you may not be able to find her this time. I told you that you will send that girl out of the country in 2 days, so don't stop my family from having a bright future. Impossible. Fu Chenxiu hung up the old man's call directly. Now he felt uneasy as long as the person was out of his sight. By sending the person away, he was taking his own life. Fourth update, it's so hard for me, woo woo woo. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 143. Chapter 143. Chapter 143. He doesn't want anyone but you. Is it Grandpa? Zhang Xiao asked. Well, I know you're back and wanted to see you, Fu Jianxiu replied calmly. Zhang Xiao felt a little guilty when he thought that he had let the old man and Fu Yan work so hard to help him go abroad, but in the end he was captured by the boss. Why are you in a bad mood? Fu Jianxiu could clearly feel the slightest change in Zhang Xiao. Zhang Xiao shook his head while picking up his rice. No. Fu Chen's slender eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his two thin lips pursed. When I was young, I hoped that you could tell your fifth uncle anything you had to say, instead of hiding it in your heart. No. Fu Jianxiu lowered his eyebrows, his handsome face sank a little, and stared at Zhang Xiaoxi with his dark eyes. He felt more helpless in his heart. After all, the little girl still didn't open her heart to him. Didn't you say you were going to Niuniu's house? I'll drive you there, Fu Jianxiu said. Just let the driver deliver it. Zhang Xiaoxi subconsciously rejected Fu Jianxiu. Fu Jianxiu narrowed his cold eyes, glanced at Zhang Xiaoxi, his voice was cold and his face was hard. Xiao Xiao, don't reject me. Zhang Xiao looked at Fu Jianxiu with aggrieved eyes. He was holding some emotions in his heart. It was really uncomfortable, but he did not dare to speak out. Fu Jianxiu stretched out his hand, pinched her face, and stood up. Have you eaten? I'll carry you to the garage. I can walk. Zhang Xiao stood up despite the soreness in his legs. What a joke. He was carried to the garage by the boss. What did the servant at home think? She didn't want to be drowned in spittle. Fu Jianxiu frowned and stared at her. Are you sure? Okay. In order to prevent the boss from hugging her, Zhang Xiao took a few steps forward naturally despite the pain. Zhang Xiao was still about to take 2 steps forward when he was suddenly picked up by Liu. A low-pitched voice sounded in his ears, my legs are trembling. I know my abilities well. Zhang Xiaoxiu's face turned red when he heard his rogue words. He was so shy that he couldn't help it. Zhang Xiaoxiao originally thought that the boss would leave after sending her to Chu Hanyu's house. Unexpectedly, the boss not only did not leave, but also stayed downstairs to chat with Du Xiangfen, waiting for her to slowly chat with Chu Han. Zhang had been lying on Chu Hanyu's lazy sofa with no love since he was a child, chatting with Chu Hanyu in a bad mood. Hanyu, what do you think I can do to make my fifth uncle have no feelings for me? Chu Hanyu gasped and said ruthlessly, don't think about it, it's impossible. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Chu Hanyu with dark eyes and said depressedly, why is it impossible? There are thousands of women in Hanyu's world, and there will always be one that Uncle Wu likes. Uncle Wu only likes this one of yours. Chu Hanyu took a sip of sour plum juice, stared at her, and analyzed her ruthlessly. A man at the top of the pyramid like Uncle Fu, if he doesn't want any woman, all the women will come to his door for free. Do you think there will be fewer women? Zhang Shi. When I was young, if Uncle Fu wanted to find a woman, there would be no shortage of women around him. At the age of 28, Uncle Fu, except Zhou Yuling, was just a shield. It only meant that he only had you in his heart. He was waiting for you to grow up. Apart from you, he won't want anyone. Zhang Shi. Xiao Xiao, Uncle Fu Wu is actually not bad. You really don't want to give it a try. The person who has loved you for so many years and loves you only is not something you will meet just because you want to meet him. Chu Hanyu advised Zhang Xiaoxi. It's here, please add it to your favorites, please vote for recommendations. There are many typos in the front. That's because the author didn't have time to review the article. Please forgive me. I'm on vacation and will go back and read it again. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 144. Chapter 144. Chapter 144. An aging tree. Zhang Xiao felt that she had come to the wrong place today. She originally thought that this guy could help her with some advice, but she didn't expect that she actually turned her elbow outward. What Chu Hanyu said has nothing to do with anyone. She thinks Fu Jianxiu is really good. She has only loved Zhang Xiaoxiao for so many years. It is also a secret love. She knows how hard it is to have a crush on someone, and she also knows how deep love can be. Deep. Just from the moment Zhang Xiaoxi was 16 years old, when she saw Uncle Fu Wu acting like that, she knew that he must love Zhang Xiaoxi very much. Hanyu, do you think the Fu family can accept the relationship between me and my fifth uncle, and grandpa can bear it? Zhang Xiaoxiao's delicate brows were tightly focused on Chu Hanyu. Chu Hanyu frowned, was silent for a while, and then said with an extremely serious expression, when you were a child, you should trust Uncle Fu and believe that he would handle this well, just like you unconditionally trusted, believed, and relied on him when you were a child. Zhang Shishi's thick eyelashes were drawn down, covering the emotions in her pupils. Naturally, she knew very well how Baiyu Eguang relied on and got along with his boss when he was a child, because she had Baiyu Eguang's memory. It seems that Baiyu Eguang also likes the boss, but he hasn't discovered it yet. And the boss would only take things by force, which led to her arrival. Baiyu Eguang would be very happy if she heard the boss's confession. How could she and the boss face the problems they would encounter in the future together? It's a pity that she is not Baiyu Eguang, she is a book wearer. If you just read novels and see the love between the boss and Baiyu Eguang, she will feel very sweet, hope that they can be together, and will envy this kind of love that is pampered. Love is white moonlight. If she responds to the boss, she will be a thief, and she despises herself in her heart. When you are young, don't think too much. When love comes, you should enjoy it instead of worrying about this and that. You should believe that he will help you carry everything. Chu Hanyu believed in Fu Jianxiu and believed that he would not let Zhang a little bit of damage every hour. Zhang Xiao chose to remain silent. She could not tell Chu Hanyu that she was not the same Zhang Xiao as before. If she told Chu Hanyu, she might not believe it. I'm going back first. Zhang Xiao stood up and left after being silent for a while. Chu Hanyu reached out to hold her. Child, I was wrong. I shouldn't have helped Uncle Fu speak. I should have helped you. Zhang Xiao. She didn't mean to blame her. Uncle Fu is a bad guy. Let's ignore him from now on. Come and give me a hug. Chu Hanyu hugged Zhang Xiaoxi tightly, for fear that she would just walk away. Zhang Xiao is indeed a fickle woman. One second she was persuading herself, and the next second she started to speak ill of the person involved. However, his mood began to improve, and he said dully, I thought you had taken refuge with Uncle Wu. Since I came in, you have been helping Uncle Wu to speak, and you don't help me anymore. Chu Hanyu patted her gently and apologized heartily. When I was young, I was wrong. How could I seek refuge with Uncle Fu Wu? I have always been on your side. If you don't like Uncle Fu Wu, let's not embarrass ourselves. You will also encounter many little puppies. There is no need to give up the entire forest for one tree, which is still an aging tree. Zhang Xiaoying burst out laughing at what Chu Hanyu said. I don't know what the big boss's expression will be when he hears an aging tree. It will definitely be wonderful. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 145. Chapter 145. Chapter 145. The Road to Death. You scared me to death. Look at your stern face. If I asked you to leave my house like that, who would you go to complain to? Chu Hanyu said. Zhang Xiaoxiao said in a low voice and curled his lips, no matter who asks you to speak for Uncle Wu, it is impossible for Uncle Wu to talk to me. There is an insurmountable gap between us. Is there really no chance? Chu Hanyu asked without giving up. Zhang Xiaoxi answered very seriously, well, it's impossible. Chu Hanyu sighed helplessly. She originally wanted to help Uncle Fu Wu, but now it seems that there is really no chance at all. When I was young, I support you in whatever decision you make, but I'm afraid Uncle Fu will not treat you right. Let go. Jiang's heart has been sinking since she was a child. The boss looks at her like that and he is really right and won't let her go. I know, so don't I ask you to help me find a way. Zhang Xiao also had a headache. She was unable to leave the boss, so she could only find a way to get the boss to give up on her. Chu Hanyu didn't want to hit Zhang Xiaoxi. In her opinion, Fu Wush's love for Zhang Xiaoxi was so deep, how could he give up? We will find a way together, and we will definitely find a way. Hanyu, how about we find a woman to send to Uncle Wu's bed, so that Uncle Wu will give up on me? This was an idea that Zhang Xiao came up with in a day. The corner of Chu Hanyu's mouth twitched. Zhang Xiaoxiu's idea was simply a bad idea. He found a woman to send to her fifth uncle's bed. She didn't even dare to eat 10 pieces of bear bile. She quickly had to persuade this man who wanted to die. It's best not to do it when you are young. If Uncle Fu knows, I think both you and I will be ruined. Zhang Xiao organized the plan in his mind and told her again, Hanyu, I think so. Let's find someone in Ruchin who is the same as Uncle Wu, who is about the same age and has similar family affairs. It's best that Uncle Wu doesn't dare to offend him in that kind of family. Of course the woman still has to admire Uncle Wu. This time Chu Hanyu not only twitched at the corners of his mouth, but also at the corners of his eyes. Finding a woman who matched Uncle Fu Wu in Ruchin was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Not to mention Fu Wush's personal ability, let alone Fu Wush's family background, he couldn't find it in Ruchin. One that matches him, unless you're the president. Xiao Xiao, your idea is bad, you can't find such a person. Chu Hanyu really couldn't bear to hit her, but he had to wake her up. Zhang Xiaoxi's black eyes lit up and he said excitedly, you really hit the mark with Hanyu. I investigated and inquired about it. I know that the president's sister likes Uncle Wu. If we get her together with Uncle Wu, as a couple, do you think everyone will be happy? Chu Hanyu. I've thought about it. I'll contact this person first, and then. Zhang Xiaoxiao muttered beside Chu Hanyu. Chu Hanyu listened to all her plans and licked the corners of his chapped lips. When I was young, I felt it was inappropriate. Just tell me whether you can help or not. Zhang Xiaoxiao was very satisfied with his plan and threatened Chu Hanyu with his eyes. Chu Hanyu swallowed nervously. If she agreed to Zhang Xiaoxiao now, if the plan failed, she would definitely be wiped out by Uncle Fu Wu. Just thinking about it made her back and neck feel cold, but looking at Zhang Xiaoxi's expectant eyes, she still nodded with difficulty, I'll help. Hanyu, you are indeed my best friend. Zhang Xiaoxiao hugged Chu Hanyu excitedly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 146. Chapter 146. Chapter 146. Chun Chun smile. Chu Hanyu smiled bitterly and hugged Zhang Xiaoxi. Xiao Xiao, if the matter is exposed, you must protect me. We will not be exposed, we will only succeed, Zhang Shi said with great confidence. Chu Hanyu said. Her intuition told her that this matter would not succeed. The little shrimp wanted to fight the big shark, but the only fate was to be eaten. Staying at Chu Hanyu's house until evening, Zhang Xiao was sitting in the boss's car when she heard someone calling her in a daze. Hour. Zhang Xiao opened her eyes in confusion. Just as her pupils began to focus, she saw Mr. Fu's smiling face in front of her. Zhang Xiao was in a state of confusion. Then he opened his eyes suddenly and stood up instinctively. Ah! Boom! Pain! Why are you panicking? You haven't seen Grandpa before. Fu Chenxiao's cold voice reached Zhang Xiaoxiao's ears, and he held him tightly in his arms. Zhang Xiaoxiao rubbed his aching head, tears bursting out of his eyes, and he said to the boss angrily, Uncle Wu, who told you not to wake me up? Fu Chenexai was so angry at this girl that he was confused and blamed himself. He was really spoiled by himself. Well, it's my fault for not waking you up. Uncle Wu and you apologize. Zhang Xiaoxiao hummed twice to express his satisfaction. He got out of the car with a smile on his face, stepped forward and put his arm around Mr. Fu, and called out sweetly, "Grandpa, it's so late, why are you here?" Mr. Fu was elated by her sweet call and smiled lovingly, "Why am I here? Of course Grandpa is here to uphold justice for you." The smile on Zhang Xiaoxiao's face was stiff, and she was confused. Could it be that Mr. Fu already knew what she and the boss were talking about? What should she do? Will the old man faint from anger? Jiang's mouth felt as if it was glued together when he was young. "Grandpa presides over, what kind of justice? Of course it's your fifth uncle who doesn't allow you to go abroad. Don't worry when you were young. As long as you want to go, Grandpa will definitely let you go. Your fifth uncle, you don't have to worry. The old man will naturally have a way to cure him." The old man thought of Fu Chenexai this morning. Hang up the phone and stop being angry, you bastard. When Zhang Xiao heard what the old man said, he immediately put his heart back in his stomach and felt much relieved. The smile on his face returned. "Grandpa, I don't want to go abroad anymore. You don't need to help me get justice." Zhang Xiaoxi said this because she knew that even if she fled to the ends of the earth, she would be caught by the boss. She might as well stay and implement her plan. Only when the boss gets married can she be completely liberated. Mr. Fu didn't know what Zhang Xiaoxiao was thinking. When he heard her say that she didn't want to go abroad, he picked up the cane in his hand and hit Fu Chenexai. "You bastard, did you turn a deaf ear to my words? Xiaoxiao wanted to go abroad. It's a good thing, and it's good for her future. What do you mean now? What did you say to this girl to make her not want to go? Are you threatening her?" The old man's solid wooden stick hit Fu Chenexai's body with a muffled sound. Just hearing it made Jiangxi feel pain. What dumbfounded her the most was that the big man didn't hide and carried him down forcefully. If the fight continued like this, someone might be killed. Zhang Xiaoxi quickly stopped him. "Grandpa, don't fight. Uncle Wu didn't threaten me. I don't want to go out. When I was young, there was no need to speak for him. I know what kind of person your fifth uncle is." Seeing Zhang Xiaoxi protecting him, Fu Chenexai pursed his thin lips and revealed an uncontrollable chun-chun smile. She cared about herself. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 147. Chapter 147. Chapter 147. Having fun. "Grandpa, I'm not helping my fifth uncle, I'm afraid you'll get angry," Zhang Xiao said sweetly, holding his arm with the old man. Mr. Fu looked at Zhang Xiao with a smile. "My family was still considerate when I was young. Unlike some people, I'm afraid they wish I would live a few years shorter." The old man pointed at Fu Chenexai and glared at him. Fu Chenexai's expression was indifferent, as if he had not heard what the old man said, and he stood quietly beside them. "How could it happen? Grandpa, it's not too long for you to live to be 200 years old." Zhang Xiao flattered him, but of course he also hoped that this kind old man would live longer. Mr. Fu was coaxed to smile by her. He looked into Zhang Xiao's eyes with affection. "Grandpa won't be an old monster if he lives to be 200 years old." "It's not an old monster, it's an old fairy," Zhang Xiao said as he walked into the villa with the old man in his arms. Fu Chenexai followed the two of them silently. The old man came just in time for dinner. Zhang Xiao took the old man to the restaurant, where the servants had already prepared dinner. After helping the old man check in, Zhang Xiaoxi naturally sat next to the old man, and Fu Chenexai sat opposite Zhang Xiaoxi. Dinner includes stewed pork ribs with lotus root, stir-fried lily, cold vegetables, and stir-fried beef with celery. Zhang Xiao worked diligently to ladle the lotus root and pork rib soup overnight and put it next to the old man's hand. "Grandpa, drink the soup to maintain your health." Mr. Fu looked at Zhang Xiao softly, his eyes and tone full of love and doting. "Don't worry about Grandpa, you should also take good care of yourself. See if your little face has lost weight. Did you eat it abroad?" "Too poor. I have only stayed abroad for 2 or 3 days, and I can't say that my face has lost a lot of weight." Although the old man's words are exaggerated, Zhang Xiao's heart is still warm. The care of his elders is always the most heartwarming thing. Zhang Xiao put some celery in the old man's bowl. "Grandpa, I remember you like to eat celery. Celery softens blood vessels and is especially good for the elderly." Mr. Fu's smile almost reached his ears. "Grandpa knows, please eat quickly." The atmosphere between Zhang Xiao and the old man can be described as harmonious, but there is no one paying attention to Fu Jianxiu. They are clearly eating at the same table, but there are two different atmospheres. Fu Jianxiu didn't feel anything at first. They had always had a good relationship, but until he picked up a piece of ribs and put it in Zhang Xiaoxi's bowl, the little girl silently put the ribs aside without moving a bite, and his expression gradually began to darken. Mr. Fu naturally noticed this little thing and glared at Fu Jianxiu with squinted eyes. He was even more convinced that Zhang Xiaoxiao was bullied by him and did not want to go abroad. "When I'm young, Grandpa is full. You can accompany him for a walk in the garden behind to eat." The old man stood up. "Okay." Zhang Xiaoxiao wiped his mouth and helped the old man to the back garden, acting as if Fu Jianxiu didn't exist the whole time. Fu Jianxiu watched them go out, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot and frighteningly heavy. The servant stood aside tremblingly, risking his life and speaking. "Fifth master, the old man said he would stay and rest tonight. Follow your usual preparations. Do you still need me to teach you?" Fu Jianxiu's voice was as cold as the cold winter in December, and he stared at the servant with sharp eyes. "The old man said he wants to stay in your room." The servant swallowed nervously. God knows how much courage he mustered up to speak. "I'm here, please vote and collect." End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 148. Chapter 148. Chapter 148 is soft to you. Backyard. Zhang Xiao supported the old man as he walked along the cobblestone path, chatting without a word. Mr. Fu suddenly smiled and said, "When you were little, you would look back and see a follower behind us." "Ah!" Zhang Xiao was stunned for a moment, and when he turned around, he saw Fu Jianxiu, following them leisurely and not too far away, but his handsome face was a little dark. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaoxi met his deep eyes, which contained a bit of grievance and resentment. Within a few seconds, Zhang Xiaoxi turned around and focused his gaze on the flowers in the garden. But her heart was beating wildly, and her little face was a little hot. What was that expression? Why did she feel a little cute? "When I was young, I knew your fifth uncle very well," Mr. Fu said. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at him with doubtful eyes. Mr. Fu smiled slightly and said, "Your fifth uncle is cruel. He will kill everyone without mercy, but he will always give in to you." "Grandfather?" Zhang Xiaoxiao called out nervously. Could it be that the old man already knew that she and Fu Jianxiu had? "Xiaoxiao, listen to what Grandpa has said." Mr. Fu stopped what Zhang Xiaoxiao wanted to say. "Xiaoxiao, Grandpa watched your fifth uncle and you grow up. When your fifth uncle was a child, I felt that this boy had a cold heart. It's like he has no feelings. He can be indifferent to everyone. When you said you wanted him to be your guardian, I wasn't sure he would agree. After all, I couldn't control him at that time. I didn't expect him to do it." "Agreed. When you were with him, Grandpa was always on tenterhooks every day in the first few years, fearing that if you offended your fifth uncle, he would sell you somewhere if he got upset. Nothing can be done at the time. The old man was a little tired when he said that. Zhang Xiao helped him sit down at the pavilion in the garden and gave him a cup of tea. "Grandpa, please drink some water." After the old man drank the water, he continued his previous topic, but slowly, "I found that my worries were unnecessary. Your fifth uncle seems to have left his softness to you. He didn't let you go abroad, maybe because he couldn't bear to leave you. In your fifth uncle's heart, your uncle, aunt, and I are not as close as you. You are the person he cares about the most and the person he is closest to." When Zhang Xiao listened to the old man's words, his delicate eyebrows furrowed slightly. "Grandpa, I know. I know everything you said. My fifth uncle is also the person I am closest to." Zhang Xiao said this because she felt that Bai Yueguang must also know, otherwise why would he seem to be unwilling to leave and control his body from time to time after she was killed. She also cares about the boss as a relative. Mr. Fu patted Zhang Xiaoxi's head lovingly. "Xiao, Grandpa said this to tell you that no matter whether you really don't want to go abroad or not, your fifth uncle's attitude is sometimes too strong. Taking into account your feelings, this is his fault, but the only thing Grandpa is sure of is that your fifth uncle really can't bear to leave you, so if you return home quietly from abroad without saying hello to your family, you must not do that again. Although I don't know what your fifth uncle did to make you come back quietly from abroad, Grandpa is really scared." Zhang Xiao looked at the old man guiltily. "Grandpa, I'm sorry for making you worry." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 149. Chapter 149. Chapter 149. No. Mr. Fu recalled that when he couldn't get through the phone calls and couldn't get through to her, his heart almost stopped. So he also came to see her in the evening. "Grandpa, this will never happen again. You are also my favorite relative, so nothing can happen to you." Zhang Xiao leaned her head on his arm, acting coquettishly. "If you want Grandpa to live to be 200 years old, stop scaring Grandpa," Mr. Fu said, pretending to be angry. "Well, I will definitely make you live to be 200 years old, Grandpa," Mr. Fu said with satisfaction. "Okay, you are going to accompany Grandpa for a while. Grandpa is going to stay in Nangziyuan for a few days." "Okay, Grandpa, I'm going to walk around with you and have a chat." Zhang Xiao helped the old man and started to walk around the yard again, but there was an uninvited guest in the yard. Zhang Xiao was stunned for a moment when he saw Fu Yan, and then he went up to hold her arm. "Third aunt, why are you here? I heard that you were captured and I was afraid that you would be in a bad mood, so I came to accompany you." Fu Yan smiled, her eyes full of soft light. "Third aunt, you are so kind. I want to sleep next to you tonight." Zhang Shishi wanted Xiao Zhiju to act cute and coquettishly and wanted to keep Fu Yan. "Can't." Before Fu Yan could answer, a cold voice intervened between them. Fu Chenxiajun's face tightened, his dark eyes stared at Zhang Xiao, and he repeated again, "You are already so old, sleep by yourself." Zhang Xiao said. The room between her and the boss used to be surrounded by a wall, but now the wall was like a decoration. She wanted to keep Fu Yan here just to guard against the boss. Fu Yan was in a heavy mood, and even the smile on her face was a little stiff. She really didn't want to believe some things. "Xiao Wu, why can't you sleep with me and act like a coquettish girl when you were a child? You have too much control." Fu Chenxiao's facial lines were tense and gloomy, and he didn't show any sympathy to Fu Yan. He said in a tough tone, "I won't do it if I say no." "You brat, be careful when you talk to your sister." Mr. Fu yelled at Fu Chenxiao angrily. Fu Chenxiao glanced at the old man indifferently, not intending to speak too many words to him. Fu Yan's face was very ugly, even a little stiff. "Xiao Wu, it should be okay for me to talk to Xiao Xiao alone. Fu Chenxiao squinted his eyes and stared at Fu Yan with his dark and cold eyes. If he looked carefully, he would definitely see the warning deep in the black eyes. He said coldly, "Okay." Fu Yan took Zhang Xiaoxi deeper into the garden, her gaze resting on Zhang Shishi's body, her sharp eyes scanning the traces from her neck to her upper body, and her mood had hit rock bottom. Zhang Xiao noticed her gaze sensitively, straightened his clothes unnaturally, and said with an awkward expression, "Third aunt, what do you want to say to me?" Fu Yan suppressed all the speculations in her mind and prepared to proceed step by step. "When I was young, it was third aunt who didn't make arrangements so that Xiao Wu found you so early. Third aunt, I don't blame you. With the fifth uncle's ability, it's only a matter of time before he finds me, and I don't want to go abroad now." Zhang Xiao didn't dare to look at Fu Yan, fearing that she would see something. Fu Yan took a deep breath, and the worry in his heart expanded infinitely. "Why didn't you want to go abroad when you were a child? If your fifth uncle doesn't agree, your third aunt can still think of a way. Don't give up so early. Girls' studies are also very important. Third sister supports you in going abroad, and of course grandpa also supports you." End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 150. Chapter 150. Chapter 150 is a bit cute. Fu Yan is now 50% sure of her conjecture, so she desperately hopes that Zhang Xiao will go abroad, and time will dilute everything. Third aunt. When you were young, go abroad. Everything you see and hear when you go abroad will bring you different views and thoughts. Fu Yan's words were very urgent and she couldn't hide them. Zhang is not stupid when she is young, and is also very sensitive. Even if she doesn't say anything, she can probably guess half of it. Third aunt, I don't want to go abroad. I want to stay and see my fifth uncle get married, and then I will go abroad. Fu Yan was stunned for a moment, her brain reacted very quickly, and she suddenly understood something. When I was young, is your fifth uncle willing to get married? Zhang Xiao shook his head and replied, Third aunt, I don't know if Uncle Wu is willing to get married, but I think Uncle Wu is almost 30 years old and has reached the age of marriage. Uncle Wu has taken care of me enough over the years, don't delay your own affairs any longer. I know that the president's sister seems to have a crush on Uncle Wu. Zhang Xiao didn't finish what he said and deliberately left half of it. Fu Yan is a smart person and understands everything. It's really time for your fifth uncle to get married. Fu Yan followed Zhang Xiaoxi's words, feeling the same as Ming Jing, and her mood was not as heavy as before. Third aunt, I want to go abroad. I want to stay abroad and never come back. Zhang Xiaoxi's firm words soothed Fu Yan's heart. Third aunt, I understand. Fu Yan left, and the old man was arranged to rest. Someone had pressed his back against the door of the room with resentment since he was a child, and then came the overwhelming attacks. Well. Zhang Xiao narrowed her eyes in panic, and her little hands pushed in panic to suppress her strong body. The silence lasted for nearly 5 minutes. The moment Fu Chenxiao let go of Zhang Xiao, Miss Zhang breathed in the fresh air and looked at the person who almost suffocated her to death with misty eyes. Fu Chenxiao hugged Zhang Xiaoxi's Yuiao, put the tip of his nose against hers, sprayed hot air and spoke hoarsely, with grievance and resentment in his voice, Little girl, you will please the old man and forget all about me. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked confused and looked at the inexplicably cute boss. Before she could react, the boss's sour voice continued, you helped the old man scoop up a bowl of soup, took 5 chopsticks of celery, 3 chopsticks of fried lily, and 2 pieces of ribs, but I didn't have any chopsticks. Zhang Xiaoxiao's heart was beating wildly, and he looked at the boss guiltily, is there any? Why don't I remember? Fu Shaxiao's black eyes flashed, and he stared at Miss Zhang quietly. He brushed his red lips with his thumb and said a little arrogantly, I have already asked for the interest. If you don't help me pick up the food in the future, I won't speak to you once. Zhang Xiao's pupils were dilated, his pink face was burning, and he stared at the boss in disbelief. Boss, are you jealous? Still jealous of his own father? Our. Miss Zhang trembled her long black eyelashes and looked at the boss motionlessly. Fu Chenxiao looked at her appearance, his Adam's apple rolled unnaturally, and his voice was hoarse. Don't look at me like that, I won't be able to help it. Zhang Xiao felt the change next to her and pushed him away fiercely. You. Fu Chenxiao squinted his eyes and said coldly, when I was young, this was a normal reaction when I loved someone. Ha 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 ha, the soft and cute fifth uncle. End of this chapter.